Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome to the 202nd Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. We're over the 200 mark. We just slid into 26 countries in the last month, which to me seems to be a wild adventure through time and space in the globe. I'm Milan Starcic, and I'm here with co-host Nicolette. And today's topic is shadow work. And I am so excited to have you back on here, to have you all to myself today for this conversation. And could you tell us why you picked this topic and why you're happy to discuss this here today?
Well, first of all, I'm super happy to be here. And I'm super happy you asked me to pick a topic and that I get to do shadow work, because what it did for me this week is in order to come on this podcast and talk about it, I got to research a little bit more, and I got to really dig into some of my own shadow work this week. And it was really a motivating thing for me. And the peace that it's brought me this week to do this work is pretty priceless. Like, it's pretty amazing. And so I guess the reason why I wanted to talk about shadow work today is because it's made a huge difference in my recovery, in my life, in my ability to love and accept myself and give compassion to myself. And as I've been able to do that through shadow work, it's really given me more compassion for others too. And it's something that I really want to be able to share with other people in recovery. And I'm super excited to talk about it with you today.
So, would you like me to define it or would you like to define it?
Either way, I can define it. I kind of
Okay.
wrote down the definition here
Yeah.
because I thought it was important that we
I
define
think a
it.
lot of people will not know what it is. So let's, like every kind of thing we're introducing in it or that you're introducing, please just go ahead and define it so that
Okay.
there's nobody like some people are like, I'm standing in the shadows and I'm going to work.
Yeah. So shadow work is a process of exploring and integrating the unconscious parts of the self. That includes repressed feelings, desires, and negative traits that are hidden from our conscious awareness. The psychological practice involves, and I'm just reading from a definition
Yeah.
here, but it involves introspection to bring these disowned aspects to life, which can lead to a richer self-understanding, increased authenticity, and the potential for healing and personal growth. The core concepts in shadow work, the shadow, which is a term coined by psychologist Carl Jung, and his name is brought up so much in every book that I have ever read. Every time I've ever heard shadow work mentioned, it's always Carl Jung. He's amazing.
This is his baby, really, it seems like,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
what
Well,
I
and he
saw.
had a big hand in the inspiration for Bill Wilson, who wrote
Oh,
the Big
yeah.
Book of AA. So
Mm.
his work has inspired so many people. But anyway, the shadow, so the term coined by Carl Jung, the shadow is the dark side of the personality, containing everything we have repressed, deemed unacceptable, or have been taught to hide from ourselves and others. The shadow is not just negative. It isn't made of only negative qualities. It can also contain positive traits that have been suppressed, such as creativity, hidden talents, or untapped potential. Manifestations, shadow aspects can manifest in conscious life through patterns like self-sabotage, anger, jealousy, anxiety, and relationship drama. Individuation. The goal of shadow work is to integrate these hidden aspects, which is a crucial step in the process of individuation, becoming a more complete and authentic self. And so the question that I had after this was like, what are some of the ways that you've practiced shadow work in your life, either deliberately or without being intentional about it?
Now, this is, not going to be a very long response on this one. But, so for me, my first foray into any of it was with my current sponsor. And the very first session we got together, we were looking at something that was happening in my life, and so we did that. And then now in the sessions, she's sort of doing a round of steps with me and one of my sponsees because, like, she is a whirlwind of amazingness. Shout out to Shaylin, anybody who's out there, like, ooh, I love her. And she'll just be like in the middle of a paragraph as we're going through the steps and be like, okay, now you remember this, talk about that. Now think about, like, and it's just like, boom, like, let's just pull something out of you that relates to this in this way. And so, like, I really am, I've been trying to educate myself this week. That is one of the benefits of doing this podcast is I've been educating myself this week, but I'm also here to be educated and to kind of just discuss some of the aspects of it, really. So that's been my experience with it. But I would like to say that from what I understand about the shadow work, like one of the quotes that I've got here is one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, right? And
I like that.
I like it talks about not everything in the shadows being bad. And I'm a tremendously creative person musically. Like I feel like I am really lucky to be the conduit that I am in the universe. And one of the things I've done over the years is I've helped, for sure, over 1,000 people reach into their own creativity. And I think that creativity is one of the things that lies in a lot of people's shadows because you have to take a risk. It's like it's creativity is not the safe play in like early childhood or like early social situations. Like go ahead, like it's what's that kid movie, the Billy Elliot or whatever, the kid that dances. Like most young boys don't get to run around dancing down a hall and not getting the shit kicked out of them. But it's also just most people are afraid to step out of the safety of something that they know. And trying, like I have met master piano players who could like piano circles around me and they don't know how to make up a song. And I'm like, what? I'm like, so, like you just play other songs? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, let's jam. And then I'll take them on a journey and help set them free. So one of the things is that I don't know anything really like very much about shadow work, but I do know how to pull your creativity out of the shadows.
I love that. I mean,
Hmm.
I believe that being creative, in order to really truly be creative, you have to create from your heart. And how
Yeah.
can you create from your heart if you don't truly know yourself? And how can you truly know yourself if you're too afraid to look in the shadows? You can't.
Whoa.
You can't.
That was beautiful. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. So
so
then
I
now,
love
can you answer your own question?
I can definitely answer my own question. My first introduction to shadow work was, oh, it's 2025, so about 4 years ago. And I had been in recovery at the time for about 10 years. And my first real introduction to it was this book called Existential Kink. And I was dating this guy at the time, and he's like, have you read this book? It's amazing. And I was like, no, like we don't read that stuff in Christian circles. Because at the time,
Hmm.
I was just kind of stepping out of a very Christian way of life.
Hmm.
And so it just hadn't been something that I had really looked at. It wasn't something that they really touched on in Christianity. It was all light, right? All light and love, and nobody look in the shadows.
Yeah.
God is all good, right? And that was what I learned in Christianity. God is all good, and if anything is bad, it's from the devil. And so it was very interesting to open up Existential Kink. It's a book by Carolyn Elliott, who is actually a recovering heroin addict, who
Okay.
got her start in 12 step. And she after she got sober, she got a doctorate and started writing. And it's pretty miraculous. This book really changed my life because I opened it up, and one of the first things it says in the book is God is a kinky motherfucker. And I went, oh
Ah.
my God. And all of a sudden, like all of this stuff in life that like I just didn't know what to do with. Like, if God is all good, why does all this bad shit keep happening, right? Why, if God is all good, are there, hungry children in the world? And why, if God is all good, is this person that I know that's the most loving person, like, why did they die of cancer? Like, if God is all good, and then when I opened it up and I read that, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, it all makes sense now. Like, no one ever told me that in Christianity. And it
Yeah.
just sort of opened up my mind. She tells this story at the beginning of the book about this goddess who she ends up like being kidnapped by this other god. I think it's maybe the story of Persephone. I'm pretty sure. I'm not really great at recounting stories, but um, Persephone gets kidnapped by this god, the god of the underworld. I think it's Hades. And he takes her into the underworld and kidnaps her, and like she she becomes goddess of the underworld, and she turns it into this beautiful story about that's not, I don't know. I guess I can't really articulate the story well, so maybe I shouldn't try that. But it just amazed me that the way that she could make it sound like it's not all about just good, right? Like the good
Mm.
and the bad are are all part of life. And the whole the whole premise of existential kink is that it's about dissolving the negative patterns by being willing to uncover and like celebrate these parts of ourselves that we once labeled um, bad or unwanted, things that we wouldn't necessarily want to look at. For me, let's see. Just gonna read a little bit of the definition of this book. One of the things she says is having is evidence of wanting. The theory is that anything that is manifesting in our lives, especially unwanted patterns that keep repeating themselves, are there because some deep, dark part of us unconsciously wants that and takes great pleasure in it. So then, uh, what I did with that is like you take these pieces. And for me, it was anger, right? It's always been anger, has been something that has plagued me for many years in my recovery. It plagues me not nearly so much now because of the work that I've done here and some other work that I've done. And the other thing that I kept repeating these patterns of like abusive relationships. And that piece of like having is evidence of wanting. If I'm in
I
an abusive,
love that. That sentence. Sorry to interrupt. I want you to keep going, but I love that sentence so much.
I love it too.
Mhm.
And it really makes you take responsibility for what's happening in your life. If I have this in my life because I want it in my life, I better damn well take responsibility for it or I'm not getting rid of it.
Yeah.
And And yeah, like with the patterns of abusive relationships, she talks about it in the book, and it was very similar to my own situations. And so I just started. realizing like, hey, obviously there's this part of me that really loves being controlled, right?
Mhm.
There's this part of me that really loves these pieces of my life. And so the point is, it's a quote. She says, quotes Carl Jung here, where she says, if you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate." And so the point of this is like making that unconscious piece of me that obviously really likes to be controlled in relationships, that obviously really likes people that are unavailable to me, because that's what I grew up with, right? I grew up in a very abusive situation. My mom she was a rageaholic. She was super abusive to my dad, and my dad, his life revolved around trying to please an unpleasable woman. And so I sort of became, instead of becoming like my mom, I hated my mom. I didn't want to be like my mom. So I became like my dad, right? Always controlled, always being yelled at, always, like these pieces of chaos in my life constantly. And once I started to embrace that and make it conscious, and really own that, uh, it suddenly went away. It was amazing. Like I had the
Wow.
very first healthy relationship of my life. Um, and it was a beautiful thing. So I don't know.
So that made you a believer.
That made me a believer. That was my first introduction to shadow work.
Wow. And it had that profound of effect. I think it was in that Gabor Mate book you recommended. I look at where they say like rage, like anger and rage, it produces twice as many endorphins as heroin or something, wasn't it?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, ooh, I'm like, that's why that's the hardest one to let go of. Like because I don't get that same kind of thing from sadness. And sadness is not my problem. Like,
I don't know. I'll do the same thing with sadness. So,
I mean, maybe you got some sadness receptors I'm short of.
but definitely anger was my go-to for a long time. And it is. Our brains can make pretty much the same chemicals that we get high on,
Well,
right? Like,
inside our body, it is the same chemical.
yeah.
Like it's only it what the receptor receives, right? And then the other side is manufactured by us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it literally is the 100% same drug. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, that's why some people like in some drugs, they're like, ooh, that's like an orgasm. It's because it's just like that flood of the same endorphins.
Yeah, what's crazy though is when you've been off drugs long enough and you really like look into different practices, like you can make all those things maybe not as quickly or to the same extent, but you can make those things happen in your body without actually getting high. It's pretty amazing.
I was hosting a music night when I was straight before. I was drinking like a 0%, zero, nothing beer. And as was normal for me, the end of my set happened. I took it down. I had to pee, but I was also very dry from singing. So I took it off the shelf because I always keep mine away from getting kicked over. I took it down. I finished it off. And for 5 steps walking across that room, I was a simulated drunk person. And I realized I'm like, whoa, I'm like, if I can pretend to be drunk, like really for 5 seconds with no hangover, no ill effects, no stupid actions, I was like, got to be able to stretch that out to a minute, stretch that out to an hour, stretch that out to a day.
That sounds like some addict thinking there,
No,
Milan.
the reason that it was like that was actually it was neurologist thinking. Before my back surgery, I was in such crippling pain that nothing they gave me was working. Like there was a piece of my disc wedging into my spinal cord, and I went to see this one neurologist, and he made this noise, and moved his fingers, and did this, and I was like, huh, like confused, and he's like, you didn't have any pain for 3 seconds. He's like, okay, let's build on that 3 seconds. He's like, if you can be distracted for 3 seconds, you can be distracted for 5 seconds, then 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You can be distracted for a minute. And then he's like, and then eventually you won't even think about your pain for an hour.
Wow.
And so it was actually like, but I mean, what are neurologists but drug pushers, really? They're like, come on, man, take my stuff. Take my stuff before the surgery.
Depends on the neurologist, I suppose.
Yeah, and this guy was actually just trying to use distraction instead of drugs. But yeah,
I
but
love
but
that.
that's why I thought of it like that. It was exactly that same thing where it was like something happened that was highly unusual, and I was like, well, if that happened once, that is a repeatable thing. You can create some sort of. But the thing is that like I just once I stopped drinking, I was like, I don't really need to simulate the feeling of drinking. Like I don't need to be like uncoordinated and dumb and in your face because I've been receiving enough pleasure, endorphins, and joy just from existing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No, I love it too.
one thing that I saw when I was doing some research was it talked about the shadow containing personal elements and collective elements. And have you looked at those?
I haven't looked deeply at that. I have looked a little bit at that. It's something that we talk about at my little Unitarian church on a regular basis.
Yeah, and so the personal elements refer to our fears, our jealousy, our shame, our anger, and the collective ones would be like societal taboos or inherited judgments, that are just kind of I mean, gosh, like I can think of so many societal things, be it from religion, be it from school, be it from like, don't do that in public, like, when you're a little kid and because it's just disapproved of. And I was just wondering, in your work, have you uncovered a lot of both for yourself?
I mean, I think that all of our perceptions of self are to some degree built upon our interaction with society as a whole and the
Hmm.
culture that we grew up in.
Hmm.
So I would say yes, because a lot of the things that I once viewed as bad,
Hmm.
I labeled them as unwanted pieces of who I am,
Hmm.
um, because they were unacceptable in my family. They were unacceptable in my culture. They were unacceptable in my religion.
Hmm.
Things like, I don't even know, like being too loud as a woman, right? Speaking up and being myself. In Christianity, really as a woman, you're supposed to submit to your husband. You're not supposed to be really loud. You're supposed to be on the quieter side and really submissive. And that's not really who I am, right?
No, no,
Um,
no, no, no.
so so it was really a dynamic that was really difficult for me, especially when I married somebody who was very controlling, a religious man. I had to suppress that piece of my personality and tell myself that it was wrong. So I would say, those collective things, they do have a lot of influence on us in the way that our beliefs are shaped and
Mhm.
what we believe is what shapes how we behave. And so maybe that's one of the biggest pieces of the shadow work is it changes our beliefs. And when we change our belief, it changes our behavior. And so what shadow work has done for me is I don't believe that I'm sinful. I don't believe that there's any part of me that is a bad part. And we can go into a little bit in the other thing that I've learned where I relate to shadow work is a book called No Bad Parts, also based on a lot of Carl Jung theory. And the No Bad Parts book is based on the internal family systems model. And I don't know if have you had any experience with internal family systems? Have you heard of it before,
Nope.
Milan? No. Um,
But I'm happy to learn right now. In fact,
it is.
joyous.
It is something that I learned about through, I have a spiritual advisor who used to be my pastor, and shout out to Kristen. She's amazing. She has guided me for the past, I don't know, how long have I been sober? I'm coming up on 15 years here, and probably for at least 13 of that. She has sat with me, she's talked with me, she's been my spiritual guidance. She's currently my spiritual direction coach, and um, she is the first one who introduced me to the internal family systems model. And I'm just going to read a little bit about what that is so we can define that for people on the show as well, because I think that's important. I put the definition in my notes here. The internal family systems, IFS model, is a therapeutic approach developed by Richard Swartz in the 1980s. It views the mind as a system of interacting subpersonalities or parts, each with its own perspectives, feelings, and motivations. The model emphasizes understanding and harmonizing these parts to promote healing and self-awareness. IFS therapy aims to help individuals recognize and integrate these parts, leading to improved mental health and emotional well-being. And this particular practice, I have done with my spiritual direction coach for, I would say, the past 3 years. We've been working with IFS, and we've done a number of different sessions where we have sat together, and it's a little weird because the premise of IFS is that we're not just one single personality, that there are many personalities within us.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
also, yeah, it also plays on some other work I've done in some other places. I know in my Genesis process place, we talk about protective personalities. And in IFS, it's like you have these different parts of you, and uh, none of them being bad. But some of them, there's a part that's like the inner critic, right? Constantly telling us you're doing a shit job. Look at that. Like, why are you doing it that way? You're an idiot, right? That was my inner critic. Always told me I was an idiot. Always. And so the what we do in the exercises is say we're working with the inner critic, right? So
Mhm.
then it would be she'd have me close my eyes and she'd have me picture the inner critic in my mind. And we would talk to the inner critic. Hey, inner critic, how are you doing today? What thank you for, what you have done for me in protecting me. In each one of these parts, they're trying to do something to protect you. So, like the inner critic's piece of protection would be they don't want you to fail, right? That's all they really want is they don't want you to fail. And so then you talk to them and you say, okay, well, thank you for protecting me and trying to help me keep me from failing. And at a time in my life, I really needed that. And what do you need from me now? And a lot of times these parts don't realize that, we're fully grown up now. They're looking at us like we're still young. And so it's like letting these parts of us know, hey, thank you for protecting me. Like, I don't need that anymore. I'm full grown now. And like, what do you want from me? And a lot of times they just want to be seen. They just want to be heard. One of the biggest ones for me has been like this piece of me that is like this little girl that is always just lonely and just needing love, right? And so we did these exercises where, I just meet with that little girl in me and I would just hold her and tell her it's all going to be okay. Like you're not alone. And it just it transformed something in me and it continues to when we do the work. We just did a session the other day where we had to have a talk with the anger part of me and realizing that there's some really good parts of that anger. Like it's super motivating. My anger has driven me to do things and to fight for things. I'm pretty sure my first year of sobriety was run fully on just being pissed, right? I just, instead of being pissed at the world, I just got pissed at alcoholism. And I was
Yeah.
like, fuck this, right? Like that anger has motivated me to do things, to change things. Uh, and it's really a beautiful piece. So
Hmm.
like finding these good things about these places we've labeled as bad, and it has literally changed how I view myself. It's changed how I view the world because really like how we view the world is just a reflection of how we view ourselves.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's changed how I view my higher power. It's changed everything for me, I think. Um, And I had another question down here that refers a little bit to no bad parts. So I am going to read a little bit here and then I'm going to
Yeah.
ask a question.
Okay.
Uh, so in Richard Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts, he mentions a sub-personality called the inner drill sergeant, which I brought up earlier. This would be a sub-personality that attempts to shame you into behaving. He states that any attempt of an inner personality to shame ourselves into behaving within our internal family system works no better than it does in an external family system in which parents adopt shaming tactics to control their children. Who I've tried that. It doesn't work well. Uh,
No, in fact, I would say there's fucking long-term effects that happen off that.
yeah. Well, I don't think I was ever motivated by anything but shame when I was a child. That was the only thing that my parents ever used to get me to do things was shaming me.
Guilt for me, I would say
Yeah.
guilt.
Guilt and shame. Yeah.
Guilt is hard to get rid of, man.
Yeah. And that doesn't work any better when we use it inside of ourselves than it does when parents try to use it to control their children. Carolyn Elliott's existential kink technique also attempts to help us remove the shame from the most shameful, quote unquote, parts of our personalities and begin to look at them as something we unconsciously love. How has shame played a role in your recovery or in keeping you stuck in addictive behaviors?
Ooh, well, how shame played a role in my recovery or keeping me. Well, I would say that it was definitely part of keeping me stuck in my addictive behaviors. Like like when I look at how I thought of myself because of the consequences that had occurred from really shameful actions inside my addiction, and the string of people that I hurt, the number of lives I changed, the whole path of destruction. I mean, I don't know about your story, but mine was filled with that. Mine was filled with consequences, um, and uh, and that, you know, that just got to a point of like, well, then why change? Like by the age of 51, before I came into recovery, like I didn't see myself as rapidly evolving or going somewhere good. Like I started to give up on me because
Yeah.
of that shame. Like that was one of the consequences from it for sure. And, but in recovery, you know, um, it's been a long road to forgiveness, which I'm not even claiming to even be halfway there yet. Like I'm working at it, but I mean, it was just a couple weeks ago that I had a massive thing happen with me about finally becoming entirely ready to start forgiving myself. Like literally praying for willingness and crying and just trying to be so like to initiate that process. And then once I did that, it started, but it's like anything else. I don't get to be like magical fairy wand, Milan is free. Like that's just that's just not my experience with life or recovery. You know, there was a guy at this one meeting, and Andrew always cringes, but I'm gonna say his name, Jim N, man. I like he one of my favorite things is Jim always said, he's like, you want self-esteem, do esteemable things. It's a pretty simple formula, but it takes, like if you've packed a life of 51 years of a lot of non-esteemable things, like, the scales to start to even out of, like, memories versus new memories, even of some being somebody better, being somebody new. So, I mean, learning learning the mechanisms of forgiveness is part of my path to freedom from shame. And I never thought that I would have a guilt-free day in my life. And right after my fifth step, I had 36 hours where I was like in tears, crying for joy. My life had changed in that direction. So if it can happen with guilt, it can happen with shame. I firmly believe that.
That was powerful. Like I was just I was so present listening to that and could so identify with it. Um and it so relates to this whole idea of shadow work too, of like accepting these parts of us that cause that pain and that shame and
Hmm.
saying, you know what, like I love you anyway. I love you for the shame that you cause. I love you for this broken pieces because it's part of what made me who I am. And it's a part of like it's been part of fully forgiving myself for me. And it took me years. I mean, I've been in recovery for 15 years. I don't think I came to a place where I have felt like I fully forgive myself until maybe just this last year. And it's been
Wow.
because
It's
of
a
the shadow
journey.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been because of the shadow work. It's been because of instead of just like I mean the first part of the journey was changing self-talk and like
Hmm.
starting to combat that when I would call myself an idiot, I'd be like, no, you're not an idiot. You're not talking to yourself that way. You
Hmm.
made a mistake, and that's okay. We all make mistakes, right? It started with that. But then this shadow work of like taking these parts of me that I hated, and all I wanted was to get rid of it. God, that stupid anger. So fucking followed me for the last 10 years of my recovery. Why does it keep following? I mean, I literally, like, I gave up. I gave up on it. I I believed at one point that I was never getting rid of my anger, and the shame around that was so deep. I would yell at my kids, right? And I would know that I didn't want to be like my mom and I didn't want to yell at my kids, and I couldn't stop it. And I kept trying to repress it. And I
Hmm.
kept trying to push it back and I kept telling it, I hate you. I just want you to go away. Like, and it just made me hate that piece of myself, right? And when I started to look at that anger and to sit down with it and to ask it what it wants and to thank it for the ways that it protected me as a child,
Hmm.
it protected me from the pain and the grief. Like what I found underneath my anger was a world of grief. Oh my God, the pain that I had to go through, the tears. Oh my God, my best friend Heather, like I did some EMDR work around it, and like she used to just have to hold me while I sobbed because I never grieved like not growing up with a mom who loved me. Like there was anger there.
Hmm.
There was anger at being raised and screamed at all the time. There was so much repressed anger. And when I started to look at it and see the ways that it had protected me and see the ways that it kept me from feeling the grief when I didn't have the tools to deal with it, to
Hmm.
see the ways that it kept me from feeling the fear when I didn't know how to deal with my fear, um, and to just let it let it have its way, and tell it that I love it and thank it for all it's done for me and begin to like love it for being there and stop hating that grief and stop trying to repress it and stop hating the anger for what it tried to protect me from. It changed everything for me. It allowed me to forgive myself for something that carried so much shame for me for so long in my recovery. It's pretty amazing.
They
Uh,
say that it hurts as much to pull a scar off the heart as it took to put it on. And I really believe that. That's been, ever since I heard that, I've been in my own experiences is that there is like healing has some pain, and it's the same pain that's got put on your heart to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I was out running today and I was just having these thoughts because when I run, like that's when I think most
Hmm.
clearly. And one of the things that I was thinking about was just like, first of all, I was so full of gratitude because my life has just so changed from even what it was a year ago. I would have never thought a year ago I would be where I am today. Um, and I was just so grateful. But I looked back on like all of the things that I've gone through, right? Like I was having these flashbacks of the last 7 years of struggle and loss and pain, of sitting in my car and crying, of not having a roof for my children and I, of living in transitional housing with my kids, trying to get to a safe place, of losing half my family, watching my childhood home burn to the ground, like just like loss after loss after loss. And through it all, like I had all these wonderful, wonderful things in my life. Um, and now I'm at this point in my life where after all that loss, like I lost everything that I owned. I lost half my family. Um, and it was a divorce, but it was more like a death. We've never seen him again, right? I lost my stepdaughter who I raised for 5 years. Like all of this loss in my life. And now, like if you had asked me 6 months ago, I was living in low income housing in an apartment. My neighbors were drug dealers. This is 14 years into recovery. I've got drug dealers as neighbors. I've got PTSD vets attacking me and my son in the hallway. Like I never would have thought that I would be able to own a home because no matter how hard I worked, like I couldn't make enough money. And I saved a lot of money, but it wasn't enough in Bellevue. And my family just like miraculously, after 7 years of watching me struggle, like came through. I told them the story about some of the incidences that had happened to me in this building I was living in, and then somebody got stabbed right in the hallway. We came home and there was like blood everywhere. And my family bought me this beautiful home, and I get to live in this beautiful home now. But like that didn't happen for 7 years. And
Hmm.
those 7 years of struggle, like it's so strange how the thing that I most wished hadn't happened to me is the thing that made me who I am today. And
Yeah.
and I wouldn't change it now for the world because the lessons that I took from that season of loss and all of the shame and all of the pain, I never stopped fighting for it. And you said something, I don't remember if we were recording it or not, but you said something about like there's a cost to recovery, right? Like it doesn't just
Freedom's
show
not
up.
free.
It's
Freedom's
not
not free.
free. No,
No.
freedom is not free. And
Mm-mm.
I almost died fighting for this life multiple
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
but I never stopped fighting. And I look back at that girl I was 7 years ago, crying in a car, not knowing where I was going with my kids, and like to who I've become today, and to be grateful for every moment of that. Like, I don't know, man, it's pretty amazing.
You know, my good friend Laura, she always says, she's grateful for the lessons and the blessings. And one of my greatest lessons in life was one of the most hardest things ever. When I was 25, the first house I built, I had cut the trees, I milled the wood, I pulled them out of the forest. I like milled them with my cousin on his sawmill. I like took a forest and with a chainsaw in his mill and made my first place. And 9 months later, it burned to the ground with no insurance, no nothing, everything in it. And it was crippling at the time. And to me now, it's one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life. It freed me from Ontario. It freed me from being there. It freed me from like my life would just not be out west. I would not be here. I would not be who I am. I would not have done all the things I've done out here. I would have been there probably working in a factory number 165234, like whatever. And it's just like, so man, those lessons are there. And the harder it is, like that taught me that possessions don't define me. Like, which coming from being a fairly like whatever, like a money possession oriented child, like, young 20-year-old at that point, and also it taught me that I can rebuild my life from not even having a toothbrush, like from like nothing, and so that takes a lot of fear out of your life, those two lessons. Like it's just like, okay, like I might not be liking this, but I'll take it,
Yeah.
you know, and hold on tight for what the lesson could be later, really, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the best thing that ever happened to me and the worst thing that ever happened to me was losing everything I owned, right? It was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it's also the best thing because like you said, like there's no fear anymore. You can't take from me
Mm.
the things that are most important in life. Nobody can take those from me.
That's
Nobody.
why, like, that's why right now I am loving walking in the dark. Like, and I know that it wouldn't be safe for everybody out there, but it's just like the surrender of like propelling myself forward out into like the wilderness with no lights, no safety net, no nothing. Like, I find that to be just a massive release. Like, it's like, here we go. I'm with it, and can I be scared still? Sure, I could be scared. And I have been by a garbage can last week. Like, yeah, but I don't know. Okay.
I feel like walking in the darkness is sort of a metaphor for shadow work.
Oh, maybe I've been prepping myself for this podcast, like in
Maybe you
real
have.
time. Yeah. So it says we often project our shadow onto others. What we judge most harshly in them often mirrors what we haven't faced in ourselves. Ooh, I just pushed something on my computer. I don't know. You still hear me? Yes.
Hmm.
Okay, and it's still recording. Okay. Sorry, I just thought I might have like disabled something. Um, and what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that's true.
Yep.
I think, I think there's something about that in the big book too. Um, I can't remember the quote right now, but something to the effect of what we judge in others, it's because it's within us. Um, and I can tell you that as I've begun to look at the darker traits of my own personality,
Mhm.
and begin to accept them for what they are and to be honest with myself about them and to take these darker aspects of who I am and to get to know them without judgment, without labeling them as bad, to
Mhm.
hear what they have to say to me, what part of my life that they are. Um, it has so changed how I look at other people. I can't
Ooh.
tell you, like, to look at those pieces of myself without judgment and to love them in myself for what they have provided me, for how they have protected me, um, for the depth that they provide me. Like getting to know the darker parts of me, I think has given me, I've always been kind of a deep person, but like even more depth. Not that I probably needed it, but even more depth. And I can't like to hold a resentment. I can get pissed at people for a moment, right? I can get
Mhm.
irritated with someone. There are certain people that do things to harm. that really get to me if they like really hit on a trauma note of something that I've experienced. Mostly it's narcissists that will do that to me.
Hmm.
Um, but for the most part, like holding a resentment's almost impossible.
Yeah.
When I see someone acting in a certain way, it's like I can see the trauma behind it. I
Hmm.
can see the protective parts, like because I've seen them in myself, and I
Hmm.
know that those pieces don't come from a place of maliciousness. They didn't in me and they don't in other people. And so
Hmm.
it's done this thing in me where like I don't I don't have hate in my heart anymore. I can still be judgy, but it's not the same. It doesn't last as long. I
Hmm.
know when I'm doing it and I catch myself and I'm like, well, that was super shitty and judgy of me. Like, why did I do that? Why did I think
Hmm.
that? Um, it's just changed me. How about you?
Well, I had my one of my most amazing clients ever. Her name was Rosa Metzler. She was 94 years old and the greatest scenery painter I've ever seen in my life. But that's regardless of the point. She turns to me at one point, like she just wanted to impart this. And she says, she said, nobody thinks they're the villain. And she had a Nazi death camp tattoo on her arm. Somebody who could go through something like that and be just like, nobody sees they're the villain. And and that's it relates exactly to what you're saying when said you could see the child in them, or you could see the trauma, or that you've experienced that, or you could see the roots of that. Like and then the next sentence she said is everybody's the culmination of their life experiences. She's like, so imagine how horrible their life was for that action to be normalized.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whoa. Like it changed the way I looked and judged everybody for since then in the same way, because it's the exact same thing. Like I can just see this damaged little kid who was like yelled at all the time, and so to them yelling's okay, you
Yeah.
know, like, or just like was insulted all the time, and so they think it's okay to insult. And like, and it doesn't justify painful behavior and abuse. That it doesn't justify. But what it justifies is the root of it. Like it shows where it came from.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen a little baby who's like, I just want to go kill people. Like, like, or just like, like I watch little tiny children, you know, um, this is something for me. It's like every child is born with perfect pitch and perfect rhythm. And that is a truth. And every single, like 99, we could look up the stat, but if you say, what is the number of people with perfect pitch? It's probably less than 3%. Means 97% of our society has been shit shamed out of making noise correctly because of some adult was like, you don't know how to sing, shut up, whatever, stop that, don't do that. Like, and to a little kid, they're like, oh my God, this big, loud, huge creature is telling me not to. And it traumatizes them. Just like in that book, like Gabor Mate, where he's talking about like the number of seconds your mom looks at you with love and the size of her pupils denotes whether you're going to make enough endorphins to be a happy person. Like that's one of the traumas. Like, so you don't think someone being like, stop that noise, I'm watching the game. Like the kid doesn't understand a game and they don't understand this. They just think they're this wrong thing. I better stop singing forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
wild. It's
It
wild.
is wild.
Okay, so one thing, okay, so another thing I saw is to bring awareness to the hidden motives for the purpose of shadow work, to bring awareness to hidden motives, wounds, and unmet needs that influence our behavior, to reclaim energy trapped in shame and repression, and to develop compassion for the full range of our humanity. And I thought that third one was tremendously, amazingly broad, but I think it really highlights exactly what you're experiencing on that.
Yeah. I mean, even listening to you tell that story about how how our words, affect a child so that they feel like they can't use their voice. Even that, like, I know that I've done that to my kids. Uh,
Yeah.
I know that I've done that to my kids. I really struggle with loud noises, um,
Mhm.
because I was
Don't buy
brought up.
trumpets for Christmas.
No, no, no trumpets. I can't, loud noises trigger me
Mhm.
really badly, especially sudden loud noises. And I have two little boys. Well, they're not so little anymore, but
Still though.
they're a lot of loud noise, and it's just me. Like I've raised these boys on my own, and there's nobody to tap in when I need to tap the fuck out because they're loud, right?
Mhm.
And I have definitely shamed my kids. And yet to sit in a place of shame for the way that I have made them feel, doesn't it doesn't change it for them.
No.
It actually keeps me stuck in that
Mm.
pattern over and over and over and over again if I continue to shame myself. Um, so I think like that compassion for being human.
Mhm.
Like I'm a human and I messed it up with my kids. But the compassion side of that is like looking at the things that I have done for my kids and trying to do it better the next time and admitting to them, going to them and saying like, "Hey, I love you guys. I messed it up. I blew it when I yelled at you. I don't want you to think badly of yourself. I want you to have a voice. That's
Mhm.
important to me that you have a voice. But also, mommy gets overwhelmed." And like realizing that, yeah, I'm human and I mess it up, but I also like I've showed up for those boys every day of their lives. I've never
Yeah.
disappeared. My kids don't remember me drinking or using drugs. Like I've showed up in the best ways I've known how. I've continued to do my own healing work, year after year, day after day. I continue to try to be better. I'm still really fucked up, but I'm human. I'm human and I
Yeah.
love my kids and um I love my friendships and I have a lot of love to give and
Mhm.
um you know messing things up is part of it. It's part of the journey. It was part of my journey and it's going to be part of my kids' journey. And maybe they'll find a way to heal too. And if I can point them, be the one to point them towards that, awesome. And if they have to find their own way, that's awesome too. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't want to sit in the shame of that. I think that compassion for ourselves and compassion for being human, um, has changed how I view everything in recovery. It's important.
And do you know the difference between empathy and compassion?
I think empathy is kind of feeling what others feel, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Mhm.
And compassion, I don't know, to me, it feels more love-based. It's more other-based than putting yourself in someone's shoes. I don't know. Do you have a
I
definition
do, I
handy,
do, I
Milan? I
do.
want to hear the definition
Well,
now.
so because it was a few podcasts ago with Andrew where we defined it, and so empathy is the ability to understand what someone else is feeling or to feel what they're feeling. But compassion is empathy coupled with the desire to help or make it better.
Oh,
Hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think it's good. And you think of like, that COM, like calm, meaning with, it's like with passion, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, I think that there's a lot of people who think that empathy is compassion. Oh, they're very empathetic, but they don't understand that compassion is the one that actually wants to help. Like I could understand what you're feeling. I could feel what you're feeling all day and not give a shit and still be empathetic. Like that's the difference, and it's a very strange thing. So, like I think what you were just talking about was having compassion.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about like, I don't know, I feel like I've always been empathetic, but I haven't always been compassionate. And for me, my compassion for others didn't come until I learned to have compassion for myself. What are your reflections on that? Like, have you had experience with that?
So I think that there was a period about 3 years before I got into recovery where I met Rick Hansen. He's a famous Canadian. What do they call it when you can't use your legs? That's not quadriplegic. What
No,
is it?
paraplegic.
Paraplegic. He's a paraplegic guy who wheelchaired around the world in the 80s, all the way around the world, like 67,000 kilometers. And in
Wow.
his lifetime, he's raised over $1 billion for spinal research awareness and handicap accessibility on buildings because it's just like he found himself not being able to go anywhere. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. So, anyway, his whole life has been dedicated to this cause since his accident. And I met him and I wrote him a song and I like got a picture of me, like my Facebook pictures me sitting on his lap on his wheelchair with my guitar after I just sang him this song I wrote. But he lives a life of service, like in a way that just profoundly affected me, And so it was at that point that I was already looking at service. Like I've got a tattoo that says I'm grateful for the privilege to help and serve, and I got that before I got in recovery. Like and I was just so awestruck by like this guy was given this talk, and at the end he said, if I could have my legs back, but all the help I've done would be taken away, he's like, I wouldn't do it. And he was crying, and he meant it, man. And it's like for somebody to have that level of love and service for people was just so inspiring. And so for me, it's been a massive thing for me to look at, and I think that service is like compassion for the world, really. Like true acts of service is compassion for the world. You can understand where the needs are in the world, and you want to make it better, and with whatever little bit you can. And so, you know, and it's one of the things that I think helps people get out of their ego. Like I really think when you dive deep on service, it's one of the only things that can silence the ego of an addict coming in. Like I really do. I think it's like it's one of the magic secret sauces inside the program. It's like how do you stop thinking about yourself? You do something for somebody else, like wholeheartedly, whole-mindedly, everything. And I think that that's really one of the massive benefits too of sponsorship. Like I don't necessarily think coffee making is, if you like coffee and you're drinking the coffee too, making coffee is not that big of a service. And I'm not cutting anyone down if that's all they do, but it's just, like to actually just do service for service sake where nobody knows it or there's no accolade. There's good first steps into service. And some of it, people need a little attaboy on their way in the door, and that's okay. But I think the true service comes later.
Yeah. Um, I would say I would go a little different route with that, but what you
Go
said at
for
the
it.
end, what you said at the end kind of would bring it all together for me is like, um, I think for me in the beginning, my service had an element of ego to it, right? Like, look, I'm
Mm,
doing something for somebody else. Look at me.
yeah.
Uh, if I do enough things, if I do enough things, God will love me. If I do
Oh,
enough
yeah.
things for other people, God will love me. If I do enough things, other people will love me. Uh, if I do enough things, maybe I can love myself.
Mm,
Um, and so I did a lot of things to the point of overwhelming myself sometimes. I did a lot of things. I did a lot of service. I think there's a part of me that I need to still maybe look at in no bad parts. Like I need to do some internal family systems work around this like part of me that loves attention. And so I got into service and I didn't go, I wasn't in AA. I was in
mm,
Celebrate Recovery and in AA, we have trusted servants, right?
mm,
And our only actual uh, leadership comes from God in AA. Well, funnily enough, you would think they would do that in the church, but no. Celebrate Recovery, they have leaders.
okay.
And I was on the leadership team, and it became part of my identity. It became part of who I was. There was definitely some ego behind it. My when I was in the church and in ministry, I was somebody. Everybody knew me. I was loved. I would walk into the church. People would they needed me. They would ask me questions. If anybody came in, that was struggling, who you go to, you send them to Nicolette. Like, you know, I was somebody and I was needed and I was wanted and I had a place there. And when I left the church 3 years ago and I left all that service behind and I took a seat in the background where I've been for the last 3 years, just sitting in the background and I lost my identity. I lost a piece of who I was. And there was a lot of ego behind that service for me. And there's a little thing in the NA, um, oh, what's it called? It's not one day at a time. It's like this, it's a little, oh, I read it all the time. I don't know what it's called, but there's a thing in there and it says, do a good deed every day and don't be found out. It's got a caveat
Mm,
on there. Don't be found out. And you did say that at the end of what you were saying. Like, and in the past 3 years, as I've taken a back seat, right? I stopped doing service and nobody outside of the church knows or cares who I am. Um, and and the only service I've done has just been like one-on-one, like little people call me and I have these great conversations with them or I got a couple of sponsees that just like mean the world to me. And nobody knows me or knows them or knows the conversations that we have together or the healing that I've seen them do and the women that they've become. And those pieces of service nobody has seen. And they have changed me because I will never get anything back for those. And I'm so grateful for that because my sponsor, like she loved me and I never could pay her back. I never had anything to offer her back. And I got to pay it forward and now I get to see my sponsee paying it forward to her sponsees. And like it really has taken me out of ego, but not always. Ego service can be a very egotistical thing.
mm. Yeah, and it has to be like one that's not visible or not the like that you don't tell somebody about, you know,
Yeah.
truly. And I mean, even even the accolade can be from yourself. Like who's kidding who, like, coming from a place of low self-esteem. But I swear to God, I'd rather be in a world of people doing really nice things because it makes them feel good about themselves than a world where people are just killing each other and not giving a shit about anybody. Like, I'd rather you give yourself a personal attaboy and be nice to someone today. Like, I don't care. Like, I think
Yeah.
I think being good for the wrong reasons is way better than being mean for any reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And it did some really good things for me. I learned a lot of good things doing service out of ego. Um, I learned wonderful things in
Yeah,
that
it doesn't. The
capacity.
results
And
still won't help. Like bad intentions can still lead to wonderful acts.
I wouldn't say they were bad intentions. I would just say they were egotistical. And our
Okay.
ego isn't necessarily bad. I don't think we should label it bad
Yeah.
because it tries to do good things for us.
Yeah, it does. I'm so glad we're here today. I want to thank you for coming on. I mean, I love you and I appreciate you, and I'm super grateful. And it's so nice to see you here.
Yeah,
Um,
nice to be
do
here.
you want to? Do you have more you want to say about shadow work, or do you want to get into some more questions? What would you like to do right now?
Well, I have a little thing that
A
that
little thing.
really well, it really stuck out to me as I was going through this shadow work stuff. And I just kind of wanted to read it to you and get your reflections on it because
Okay.
I think it's so different from what I learned in 12-step work.
Hmm.
Um, that it really struck me. And this is not the first time that I've read this book. But I picked it up again this week. I read through it physically and I also listened to it. Not the whole thing this week, but I got through some of it. Um, and these things really stuck out to me. And I wanted to just kind of read these little quotes out of this book and just kind of hear what your thoughts are on them, and maybe also share my own. Says, I don't believe once an addict, always an addict. I don't believe that addiction is a disease that warrants a life sentence. If you ever mess up or can't string a couple of months together without a slip up, you're not ruined. Um, and that was in talking about like 12 step and seeing abstinence preached in rehab and church, and somebody that just they couldn't stop relapsing, right? And then it goes into it in another space here. Um, Let me find it. Give me 1 second here. I want to find the right quote. I marked them all, but I think I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay. Is this it? Okay, so this talks about the different parts of us and how they carry different burdens. And it says, that the distinction between the parts and the burdens they carry is crucial because many of the world's problems are related to the error that most paradigms for understanding the mind make, to mistake the burden for the part that carries it. So that's like almost like, mistaking the person who somebody is for their messed up behaviors, because our messed up behaviors don't necessarily define who we are, right? In my
Hmm.
opinion. And then it talks about it's common to believe that a person who gets high all the time is an addict who has an irresistible urge to use drugs. That belief leads to combating that person's urge with opioid antagonists, with recovery programs that can have the effect of polarizing the addictive part, or with the willpower of the addict. If, on the other hand, you believe that the part that seeks drugs is protective and carries the burden of responsibility for keeping this person from severe emotional pain or even suicide, then you would treat the person very differently. You could instead help them get to know that part to honor it for its attempts to keep them going, and negotiate permission to heal or change what it protects. Then you would help the person heal by returning to the now liberated addict part and help it unburden all its fear and responsibility. Unburdening is another aspect of IFS that seems spiritual because as soon as the burdens leave parts' bodies, the parts immediately transform into their original valuable states. It's as if a curse was lifted from an inner sleeping beauty or an ogre or addict. The newly unburdened part almost universally says it feels much lighter and wants to play or rest, after which it finds a new role. The former addict part now wants to help you connect with people. The hypervigilant part becomes an advisor on boundaries. The critic becomes an inner cheerleader, and so on, so on. In other words, it's as if each part is like a person with a true purpose. And so I guess that really hit me because, like, we don't talk about this in 12-step recovery at all. And I don't know. I mean, they talk about it like it's some sort of a magical healing. And I don't know because I didn't have an addict part. By the time I read this book, I had been in recovery for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that with my anger, which for me has been similarly addictive as chemicals have
Mm-hmm.
been,
Mm-hmm.
it's had that effect on my life, on my brain. It's alienated me from people the same way drugs and alcohol have. It's created the same high in my brain that drugs and alcohol have. It's 10 times more addictive than heroin. Um, and I know that this has helped me with
Mm.
that. And I just wonder, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, when just you reading that, it felt scary. It felt frightening to me because it's like, it's literally gambling a life on whether that would work or not. Like, totally. It's like for me, it would literally feel like gambling my life on someone else's theory. Do you get that? Like for somebody who got to the point of died and come back, right? Like that, and I was awake the whole death. Like I'm telling you right now that I'm still afraid of dying. Not because of what it would be after that whole process. I do not want to do again, and especially don't want to ever do again awake. Like it it sounds amazing, and if there could be that kind of rewiring, if there could be that kind of rewiring, I would wholeheartedly like embrace it. But I just man, I just have not. I have not been like. I mean, I had a dream on Friday night where um, I was in a bad state, like I was on Friday, and emotionally, and there was drugs there. For the first time ever in a dream, I was like, "Whoa!" I'm like, I won't be able to do the podcast tomorrow with Shannon. I'm like, in fact, I won't even be able to do my podcast at all. I'm like, I won't even be able to live my life right now if I was fucked up. And I actually consciously chose not to do drugs in my dream, which to me is just like that is some kind of profound change. And I don't know how that fits in the shadow work, but that was something. But like I would be really afraid if I went near drugs after something like that. Like because like if you're just changed, then you could consume like a normie. Would you chance it? Or would you
I would
just
never chance it,
yeah,
but
like
just because I don't see when you say that, like the first thing that pops into my heart is perfect love drives out fear.
yeah.
And why do we need fear to stay sober? Like
Oh,
why
I
do we
don't need
need
it
to
to
be
stay sober.
afraid?
I don't need it to stay sober, but it is part of my sobriety, whether I like it or not at this point, because of that experience. Like, I guarantee if you were bit in the arm by a large animal, you would carry around a fear of being bit by that animal, no matter how you try to get rid of that.
Well, that's true. Okay, that makes sense.
Like I
That
was
makes sense
attacked
to
by
me.
two shepherds when I was a kid. Big dogs that I don't know that are coming at me aggressively. I'm going to fight them. Like I'm going to stop them because I'm afraid. If I do not know that animal and it's coming at me, I will react like an animal and go home alive. And so like that same thing, like dying from something like where it was like super like the coldness, the fear, the emptiness, the loneliness, like it was so profoundly terrifying that it's impossible for that to not be part of my story now.
But
And
yeah,
that's
I
okay.
think, yeah, I think we always should remember that. I always want
Yeah.
to remember what it was like when I lost
Mm.
my freedom.
And so for me, what I think like I think I want to clarify first. Like, are we talking about feeling fully recovered, or are you talking about feeling fully recovered and actually starting to use again? Like I would like a clarification about which thing of those two we're talking about.
I don't think we're ever talking about ever using again.
Okay, okay.
This is freeing up. Like addiction is not the problem. It's a
No.
symptom of a much deeper problem. And you
Yes.
mentioned like, oh, well, if you could, oh, if it was possible to rewire like that, that's possible,
Yeah.
Milan. It's been
Mm.
shown possible. You can rewire your
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
Neuroplasticity is
Yeah.
a true and real thing and something
Mm.
that I have done extensive work with and
Yeah.
listened to a million things about, like,
Mm.
because I am so curious about that. And it has
Mm.
been my mission
Yeah.
for many years now to rewire my brain. And I think
Mm.
that's what we're talking about here is that that is possible to
Like,
take these pieces and this addict piece of us
mm.
and to heal it so completely that why would I ever I would never even want to pick up a drug again. I don't need it. Like my heart is so at peace after the
Mm.
shadow work that I've done.
Mm.
When I get sad,
Yeah.
when I get angry, when my grief is crushing me,
Mm.
I just let it flow. I let it be what it is. I
Mm.
accept it for what it is. Whatever that addict part of me was, I don't introduce myself as an addict anymore.
Mm.
I introduce myself as grateful to be in recovery because I feel like it is possible to
Mm.
heal that part of us. And that doesn't mean like that's not an excuse to use again. That's like that's what it's rewiring. It's just
Mm.
rewiring our brains. And I think it's something that we like 12 step is the beginning of that.
Yeah.
But we don't talk enough in 12 step. Like there wasn't when they came up with the big book. The research that's been done on neuroplasticity and psychology and how the brain works and how to rewire the brain, that hadn't been done yet.
Mm.
Um, and so it doesn't get mentioned in there enough. And so I just wanted to bring it up on the podcast as a maybe it is possible. I mean, maybe it's not for everyone. Maybe some people don't want to believe it's possible, but I think if we believe it's possible,
I
right?
I believe that I believe that there's been a profound change inside myself. Like I have not had a compulsion, a desire to use in over 2 years, which I would have said was absolutely 100% impossible. I think as an active addiction, an active addict in addiction, I am recovered. I am recovered from that. But the thing is I don't think there's any process that's a normie factory like that's just pumping out normies afterwards. I do not see that anywhere. And I would hate to see the results of the experiment of the people who die from that, you know? Like I think for myself, I don't have a desire to go back to that. And I misinterpreted that when you read it. It was like I was like, are they talking about just like, oh, you can just go out and use like a normal person? Like because I really think that's that would that
I would never recommend that. No,
I know. And I was
that's a
like,
bad
what is going
plan.
on? But I do want to talk about the fact that, like I've even had close friends, even Andrew said to me, he's like, dude, he's like, I think there's some aspect of what you're saying is bullshit. And I was like, that's okay. I'm like, I'm okay with that. Like, I don't think that I don't think that everybody had the same experience as me. And I feel profoundly grateful for that. Like I am so grateful that for me it has been like that because I was somebody who had the ability to white knuckle it. Like I'm stubborn as a fucking goat, okay? But like I white knuckled it for 20 months before, which is from the drugs that I was doing that from is a pretty long period of time, right? Like somebody could have said, "Oh, you're recovered by then." And I wasn't. I was not happy the entire time. I had not dived into any work on myself in there. And I did not, like, I would sit there, and if you were drinking a glass of wine, I would just watch your glass go up and down and to your mouth. And it was like I was still obsessed with it. So to have the surrender that I've had and me be free is amazing. And I 100% am saying out there to people, like you can rewire your brain. You can be free from those obsessive thoughts. Will you ever be a normie? That that I'm just not even interested in watching the experiments go bad. You know, like I think just like you can reduce like be a recovered addict, I think you can recover your addiction again if you start throwing that shit in your body.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't recommend, like, I wouldn't say that they're saying in this book that you should go out and try, like, after you heal this way, that, oh, well, you could go out and try drinking and using again. I think what they're saying is that you wouldn't want to.
I
That that you rewire your brain, like, and it's funny that you have, like, I used to do that too, and I think we teach that in AA, is like labeling ourselves like addicts against normies. And it's funny because Gabor Mate, in his book, he's got a couple of different books. One of his books is actually called The Myth of Normal. And in his book that you've been reading, The Realm of Hungry Ghosts,
mhm,
he talks about his own addiction, and it has absolutely nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. It has to
yeah,
do with buying classic CDs and how that has really like ruined his marriage. He spent tons of money. Like, I think that he's right. And that was one of the reasons why I loved his book so much, was
mhm,
that he dispelled the myth of normal. There is
mhm,
no such thing as a normie. We just happen to be people who have used chemical addiction
mhm,
to numb our pain, but it's really no different than somebody who uses sex to numb their brain. It's no different than somebody who uses shopping to numb their pain. It's no different than somebody who uses gambling to numb their pain. It's all the same thing. And if you heal what's underneath it and you retrain your brain and we teach ourselves how to be comfortable in the emotions that we have labeled as bad,
mhm,
that desire to use or drink goes away. I don't need it any. I don't even want to numb. I don't want to numb because when I get sad, I can handle it now and I know that it's part of life, and I see the beauty. in the sadness and I see the beauty in the anger. And I see the beauty in these things now and I can handle them. And I think that's what they're talking about here. They're not talking about, you know, oh, well, you should, if you do this, you're going to be so healed that then you can just go out. You're just going to be, able to drink and drug again. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that anybody is normal, but like anybody who's using, like, I would never take that risk. I don't want
I
to.
know. That was my
I
point.
don't want that risk. I don't think that anybody would recommend anybody take that risk. And
Yeah.
anybody like you or I who's been through the pain of what it costs to get sober, because like we said, freedom isn't free, right? It costs
No
a
way.
lot to get
Hmm.
sober. It costs me everything. It
Hmm.
costs me, they don't tell you that at the beginning.
Yeah. You only got to change one thing. Everything.
Yeah, you just gotta change one thing, just all of it.
Like everything
Uh
about you inside and out.
Yeah, but it was worth it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that
My
was my
eyes used
prayer
to be
when I got
green. No.
sober. That was my prayer when I first got sober. I never said the serenity prayer, and I didn't know the serenity prayer. I prayed, God, make me willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what the cost, to stay sober.
My friend
That was
Gabriel
my
prayed
prayer.
for willingness too, and that was the first prayer that was answered by for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always thought that was amazing. Like by the time I got to treatment, I was willing. I was willing. I was like, oh man, please, whatever. Yeah, it's such a profound change that happens. Like I was so unhappy because of how my perception. Like the words in that song today there that you pointed out reflected back to me. It was me. I got to change it all. Like and there's something about that is a freedom in itself. Like I'm never going to change this whole world I'm not happy with. But if it's how I see it and I have tools to start reframing, it's actually like an amazing game to play for the rest of your life, you know?
I love it.
Yeah, like play have you ever played the forgive the fastest game?
That sounds like a good game. I like it.
It's like go try to spend a couple days and it's like anything that irks you at all, just be like, I'm forgiving it. Forgive as fast as you can. And it's just like you get into less paperwork, less paperwork. There's less inventory to take. There's less resentments. There's less shortcomings. There's less everything. But it's like, this one speaker I listened to, he was talking about that. And I tried it. And sometimes I have to remind myself about it. But to forgive quickly, like the quicker you can forgive, the less trail there is of destruction in your life.
I like that. I've been playing the game of how quickly can you make amends after you screw it up with your kids.
Ooh, I'm pretty quick on that one. I could do that one real quick. In
Yeah.
fact, yeah. Yeah, that's a nasty one. Okay, so do you want to got some more questions or another topic or
Um,
huh?
that's all I got for today. Do you have more?
I got some like you got some more time?
Yeah, I got a little bit more time. Sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, shadow work begins where denial ends. It is the courage to meet what we had once fled. How has surrender helped you face the parts of yourself you once avoided?
Oh, I gotta answer that one first. I guess
Yeah.
I don't know if surrender and acceptance are the same thing, but I feel like in some ways they're very closely related.
I think they are too, but they are definitely not the exact same.
I think surrender has helped me in that I'm not trying to force the world to be what I need it to be anymore. I'm
Mhm.
not trying to force other people to be who I need them to be. And I'm not trying to force myself to be something that I'm not. Um, and that has helped me. It's been affected by my shadow work, I guess, because I think before I started shadow work, um, I felt like sometimes I needed to be somebody I wasn't. And maybe all my years in the church, and my years of like being married, I was trying to force myself into being this person that the church told me God thought I was supposed to be. God wanted me to be this person. And so I needed to fit myself into that box so that God would love me, right? Um, and and if I did A, God would do B, and that would equal C. And God doesn't fit in a formula. And my shadow work and that Carolyn Elliott quote of God is a kinky motherfucker. um, that has changed my ability to surrender. Because I'm not afraid of anything anymore. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of the parts of me that I used to label as bad because I see that there's some good in that and they're a part of who I am now. And that part of me is beautiful too. Whether other people think it is or not, I find it beautiful in myself now. And that's
Mhm.
a big change from who I was, say, 4 or 5 years ago, trying to outcast these pieces of myself because I didn't think they were acceptable in society. They weren't acceptable in my religion. They weren't acceptable in my marriage. Uh, People didn't accept them in my family. Um, and accepting those parts of me has helped me surrender to what is and be more present in life instead of needing to be something that I'm not or make my life something that it isn't. And as I have opened that up and taken the limits off my life, the amount of good things that have just happened is fucking staggering. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. How about you?
Miracles.
I would love to hear your answer to that question.
So shadow work begins where denial ends, and do not notice I am lying. Denial. It is the courage to meet what we once fled. How has surrender helped me face the parts of myself that I once avoided? Holy moly! Like so, surrender to me has really been uh, it has it has opened the door to all of my change. It really did. Like when I showed up at treatment and I did step one, where I admitted I was powerless and that my life was unmanageable. And one of the workers there was like, it's just like winning a fight by putting your weapons down. He's like, who would have thought? And it was like I was able to go like this and take this crazy shit that was going on in my brain and just put it like in my brain, my surrender's like up on the left on the shelf for my addiction. It's like up over there. It's kind of just out of reach because I don't want to touch it. And all of a sudden I had like peace in my brain. And what that did was that was the first moment I had hope that things could change for me. Like that was the very first moment. I didn't have hope when I got to treatment. I really didn't. I did not have hope. I wasn't like I thought I was actually contempt prior to investigation. I was Herbert James. Yeah, I was contempt prior to investigation. I did not have hope. But once I had that surrender, I had hope. And that hope became faith a little bit and willingness. Like it just fueled all the change. Like so I had avoided looking at every part of myself. Like when it says help me face the parts of myself I once avoided, I was avoiding looking at it all. It was like mirror mirror on the wall, do not dare point at me. Like it was just like I really I knew there was a bunch of stuff I didn't want to see about myself that I really didn't want to change yet before that. And it was just like I did everything. Like my delusions inside my addiction were airtight. I do not know about yours, but mine, I believed him. I believed him. Like I really thought people were wronging me. Like, did you not have those sort of delusions in your first round of steps? Were
Oh,
you?
I definitely had lots of those delusions.
Yeah, like they were so like I was like thinking there's going to be a line up to the left. Everybody come and apologize to me when I'm done this step work. You're going to see how perfect I was. Like it's true. Like I was that deluded, and so surrender opened that door, and then now it's like all these things like like my two questions I do with two-way prayer in the morning all the time. Well, they're two most questions. I actually did a different one today, which was kind of surprising to me, but it was how may I grow today was mine. But is how can I deepen my surrender? Like how can I let go? What little bit more shit can I let go of? And so I don't think you could surrender something that you don't know. Which is why I think it ties right into this shadow work. Like that we have to bring it to the surface to let it go, really, or we're just kind of puppeteers to something that we can't even address, right?
We
Like a
can't,
wit.
you can't surrender something that's an unconscious belief. You can't surrender it until you make it conscious.
I know, like that's what I mean. Like step 6, we're entirely ready. We're entirely ready. You can't be entirely ready if you don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And the word entirely, look in Webster's dictionary or any dictionary, it's not going to say kinda. There's no kinda entirely. There's no kinda entirely. In fact, there's no entirely kinda. Like no. Like those two words don't go together. So I mean, I think that we really, for me, like it's taken a lot of walking through the fire, facing fears, not letting them win against me, you know, and I'm ready to do that. But the surrender to me is like it is the mechanism that works when I've done all my work. It really is, and I don't understand how it works. Like some things I'll just never completely figure out, but I enjoy using them. I didn't have to invent the wheel to like driving a car. I drive a car every day, and I do not care that I didn't figure out the wheel, but I'm happy to be part of whatever's happening with surrender because it's bringing me freedom every single day.
I love that. I think you made a really good point in that we can't surrender it if we don't know it. And so surrender is like this ongoing thing. Like in the beginning of our recovery, we surrender our will to God, right? And then,
Mm.
and maybe we surrender in our first, fourth, and fifth step to, oh my God, I guess I wasn't right all the time. And, you know, and then maybe we surrender a little bit to, to, oh my God, maybe all these people didn't wrong me on purpose. And,
Or maybe
um,
they didn't wrong us at all. Some of
or
them.
maybe they didn't wrong us at all.
Like
Um,
I had twisted some shit so crazy. I'm surprised they even want to be around me ever. Like it was nutty.
there's just so many layers to it. And I love that question, that prayer of like, how can I surrender more deeply? And for
Mm.
that to be a daily prayer, that's a beautiful thing. To continue that surrender day after day. And I think as the years go by and you pray that prayer day after day after day, eventually it becomes habit to surrender rather than fight. Like there, and that's they say that in the big book too. Like we cease fighting anything and
Mm.
everything, even ourselves.
Oh,
Even
especially,
alcoholism.
yeah,
There's no more fighting. We just surrender to the flow of life.
yeah.
And I think that it comes in layers. Like we can't surrender it until we know it. And if we surrender once and we're like, oh, well, I already surrendered. So I did that
That's
once at the
all of it.
beginning, oh, I did my 12 steps. Like, and I really thought that at the beginning. I thought, oh, I'm going to do these 12 steps and I'm going to get sober and everybody's going to love me. I'm going to be great. And come to find out, like, I heard this once at a Celebrate Recovery Summit at Saddleback Church in California that I went to. I was very new in recovery, and somebody shared at a meeting, and they said I cut down the tree of alcoholism, and there was a forest behind it. I was like,
I love
oh
that.
shit. I was in early recovery at the time, and I'm like, oh man, I got a lot of work to do.
That scared you.
But it's true. Like
Yeah.
surrender is an ongoing process. It's not, we don't just do it once. It's year after year. It's working the steps after working the steps. And then when we're done working the steps, we have to step outside of the steps and look at deeper parts of our recovery and pull in, like even, Bill Wilson recommends getting outside help. And
Mm.
seeing a therapist or reading books outside of the program that are going to teach us things that we are not going to get from the program and listening to podcasts, making podcasts. I mean,
Mhm.
God, I can only imagine the different facets of recovery you're learning about and going deep into as you do this podcast.
It is like my
202
greatest.
episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that, like on an average of an hour and a half, that's like whatever, like 300 hours of talking about recovery in the last year.
Powerful.
Yeah.
That's
I've got
powerful.
another question.
Okay.
Okay. The shadow is not our enemy. It is the part of us that most longs to be loved. What does loving completely look like when directed towards your own imperfections?
It looks like it looks like forgiveness, Milan. It looks like forgiveness. You talked about earlier, s- getting down to forgiving yourself. And
Mhm.
I had thought that I had done that previously, but as I have dug into shadow work and made the unconscious conscious, I hadn't. And as I have begun to make conscious all these different parts of me that
Mhm.
haven't been heard my whole life because I've repressed them and suppressed them and they've come out sideways in all these different ways. And instead of trying to push them back, just let them out to be heard and love them for what they are and who they have helped me become and the ways that they have protected me. Um, I have learned to value all of who I am, not just parts of who I am. And it's made such a difference in my perspective of myself and therefore, like the way that I have perceived myself. And I think this is probably, and I'm sure Carl Jung talks about it somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, but the way that we perceive ourselves also reflects like the way that we perceive the world, the way that we perceive our higher power, right? And as I have changed in the way that I can love and forgive myself and really truly get rid of shame in my life, I can feel myself becoming the person that I've always was supposed to be. And it's really only in the past couple years that this has happened for me. And really in the past like 4 months since I've moved into this house where like have this brand new fresh start in a home that I own with my children. Um, I don't know, something has really changed in me. And I don't feel the shame anymore. And I have forgiven myself in a way I was previously unable to because I was suppressing those pieces of me and deeming them as wrong and shameful and bad. And when I stopped doing that, I was able to truly forgive myself. And it has paid dividends in letting go of some parenting habits that have plagued me for many years. I've been parenting for 17 years now. And it's a little late for the 17-year-old, but I'm trying. And it's still being helpful. Um, it's changed everything for me. So, how about you?
I want to say that freedom looks really beautiful on you.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Thank you. It feels nice.
It shines from you, and I love that. Yeah. What does loving completely look like when directed toward my own imperfections? You know, one of the things, like I like to use the First Corinthians 13 is something that I hold up for loving completely, at least part of it. And at this point, it seems to be one of the most complete definitions that I've found, and it doesn't really leave very much out, you know. But one of the things about it is, like it's like I have a little parrot in my head now that goes, "You're keeping a record of wrongs." Like, hey, you're keeping a record of wrongs. Like, and I literally have this voice now that goes in my head because even one resentment is a record of wrong, right? And it's like I try not to, I try not to let that happen, even with myself, and I feel like I'm carrying so much less around, you know, like the sheer act of making like that and surrender kind of my life's purpose at this moment is it's nothing but profoundly changing my days, like, you know um it's freeing me from so much crappy thought about others, about myself. Like, here's the deal is that if I'm walking around being like, fuck Nicolette, man, she fucking late. She could have fucking done that for me today. Like, if I'm ruminating on you negatively, that's damaging me. Like, if I'm blaming you, if I'm resenting you, if I'm trying to shame you through from your actions, it just shames me. It just makes me feel bad. It's like it, you know, and that's part of that whole Course of Miracles too, right? Like, and it's also it's literally like it's coming at me from it's part of the mastery of self with that Louise Ruiz. It's part of everything. Like, it loving completely, nobody has that, like, that's theirs, like the Bible started talking about it. Why? Because it's pretty freaking important, you know? And and so finally, for the first time in my life, I mean, I've been at this recovery thing, 25 and a half months, not that long. Not that long, but I feel like I'm taking a pretty deep dive into looking at myself, and I'm loving it. And I'm willing to walk through these fires of actually, like, it's like we were talking about earlier, you know, before my imperfections were you. Like, it was like literally in my step 4, like, it was every single person that I had a resentment for, I was the source of it. I was the source of it. And I'm okay. Like, I'm okay now. That was a little bit of a heartbreaking moment. Guess what? Milan's kind of like, he doesn't think he's the villain, but he's definitely not the hero in this circumstance. Like, and that was like, oh God, well, I did everything else, so this might as well be mine too. Like, there was a certain element to that feeling, but it gave me the tools to start changing. And I need that awareness for it to facilitate any change. And so part of it is like, well, what haven't I forgiven myself for? You know, and the hardest things for me are ways that I'm negatively affecting my daughter's life. For sure. Like the fairy tale daddy thing was, I could think of like two major events where I'm like, that just shattered the illusion of integrity and whatever else. And you just can never reform that. You can never reform that. But like she comes to meetings now with me, and like we are healing, and things are changing, and um, so when loving completely, when it's directed at my own imperfections, you know, it's slower ice to melt than when I direct it at yours. I'll tell you that. I can melt the ice of how I feel about somebody else way faster than about myself because there's just more depth to what I understand about maybe, the absence of motivations or just not good motivations. I can give you the benefit of the doubt way easier than me. And so it takes time, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. Whew-wee.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Do you want one more question? Do you
Sure,
get
we can
time?
do one more.
Okay. Okay. Recovery invites us to stop fighting the darkness and instead learn from it. How have your shadows become teachers rather than tormentors?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I've sort of have already answered that. I feel like I'm just going to keep repeating myself
Okay.
because I
I could
mean,
ask a different question.
okay, what other questions do you have? How many questions do you have, Milan? You don't
Oh,
mess around when it comes to digging deep, man.
I prepare like at least 16 to 20 questions every time. And I usually get to ask two. So, and in fact, on Friday, I didn't even get to ask one. Okay. Let's see. I'm just looking for some. Okay. Ooh. To do shadow work is to practice step four with compassion instead of condemnation. How has your approach to self inventory changed as you've grown in this process?
I guess I've grown in my ability to recognize um, my my harmful belief systems. And so because I can recognize those things and admit them about myself now, I'm not trying to repress them or afraid to look at them. I'm much more able to be honest about the harm that they're causing within me and the harm that they're causing without. Um, I think the biggest place, and you mentioned this too, like the biggest place where I have inventories to do is my parenting. I mean, obviously, my children are the closest to me, and they're the ones that push my buttons all day, every day. Um, and because of that button pushing, I have to do a fairly regular amount of looking at some bad reactions. I get pushed over the top a lot, and I have one of my children has some pretty major behavioral issues. And I'll tell you what, man, having a kid with behavioral issues that pushes you to your breaking point on a regular basis, I mean, when he's not around, and he lived with his dad for like 6 years, when he's not around, I can start to get like, oh, I'm okay. Like, I haven't had to make an amends to anybody in a while. I probably don't have that stuff in me anymore. Like, I think I'm good, right?
Mhm.
And I think about this sometimes with like people who don't have children, what it must be, what it must be like to like not have to face those things within yourself on a regular basis. But I have to. He's living with me now, and like if I lose my cool at all, the peace in my home is likely to be ripped to shreds. And it happened the other night. And um, and so I really have to look at like why am I losing my cool on a regular basis? And I have to like literally go to my kids when I mess up and be like, look, I really blew it. Like I really, really blew it. And I am sorry for that. And it's really, really humbling. But like also, I guess I would go back to that part about like we're human. And um you mentioned these places where like you struggle with places where you've really like hurt your daughter in your addiction and screwed up the fairy tale of the perfect dad, right? Um,
Mhm.
but maybe our kids need to see us make these amends. Maybe they need to know that we're not perfect. And maybe the imperfectness of it uh, is something beautiful for them to see too. And um, and I'm trying to lean into that more because I do screw it up with my parenting a lot. Um, but I do love my kids and I try to make it right. And I guess maybe that's how things have changed for me is like I'm able to look at those things. I think there was a point where I would say, "Oh, it wasn't that bad," or um, if I make amends to my kids, then they're not going to see me as the authority figure, right? Or I'm going to lose control over them, um, and that I mentioned it earlier on in the podcast when we were talking about shame, like that shaming within myself also doesn't work in an outer family system where I try to shame my kids into behaving. And
Mhm.
um, letting go of trying to control any outcomes and surrendering fully to the fact that I am an imperfect parent um, is very liberating. And I think it's helping my kids, even though I'm still messing them up at the same time.
I love that. Ooh.
I think I can do both at the same time. I don't think it has to be either or. I think I can be a total screw up as a parent and also like come back around and teach them how to make amends and teach them that it's okay to be human and that we all screw up and we all lose our tempers sometimes and we have to make it right when we do and we can't go back and change the past, but we can try to do it better next time.
I love that. It's amazing. Ooh, and how has my approach to self-inventory changed as I've grown in the process? Well, I mean, I've had limited experience with the shadow work, but there has been a profound effect from the first time that I did with my sponsor. But I'll just talk about how my whole feeling and approach in self-inventory has changed. First of all, like I said, I found myself as like my part in everything was kind of the source of really all my resentments. And a lot of them were basically like emotional amplification in order to enable drug using. Like it was like I would make myself madder at you than you deserved it. I would make myself sadder so that I could mourn shit and go party. I would make myself happier. But so my actual stuff I'm inventorying for has changed substantially when I actually that's not my main motive for everything, right? Like the things I'm doing wrong are just different, um, and I'm less condemning on it. Like I'm less condemning and less like, oh, everything's got to go. Like in my life, in the fact that I also look at the good stuff that's happening. I mean, I think I've come a massive distance from where I was. I think I'm such a different person. I think my entire interests, my focus in life, like I'm really not that person that I was. So like I just don't believe now when I'm doing inventories that it's like, oh, just pull out the bad list. Like pull out the bad list because I've had some really fucking amazing times and days and changes that, I don't need to experience pride in them, but I definitely have to relive some of the joy and the happiness from that, just like I would the my disappointment and anger on the other stuff. So I think for me, it's about showing the good and the bad. And now, like once I bring it to awareness, it's not like shit, I'm fucked with this thing. I'm like, oh, okay, that's just another thing that put it on the list, do what I can and surrender the rest. Like it's a climbable mountain now
Yeah.
instead of like an insurmountable thing. So wow, this was great. I'm so glad to have you back. I want to have you back again as a guest. Would you be into that?
Oh, I'm sure I would.
Okay.
I would love to come back, and I love being here, and I love the conversations we have and the depth. It's amazing. So thank you for having me on here today, and thank you for being willing to let me pick the topic, and thank you for um, how it's really helped me dig in. Like, this is great. I love it.
It's amazing. I feel like I have learned so much today, and I'm also going to order those two books. They'll be the next two things I listen to on my little walkathon for recovery, Mr. Milan's walkathons, and I'm just so stoked. And everybody out there, oh, thank you again, Nicolette, and everybody out there, tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Bye bye, everybody. We love you.
Please help us help others. If you'd like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.